hauling freight across the state line. Watching RG Bargy's logo start to shine.
G'day RG Bargy crew, hope you're having a fantastic day today and your family's happy and healthy. Alright, we're going to take a look at another feature of the 1.60 update. We're in the 1.60 beta update at the moment, doing some testing. And this one is the new sleep or mandatory sleep and rest break feature that they're telling us about. And basically what that is a lot of people are confused about it, and I must admit so was I at one stage until I read a little bit more about it and worked out exactly how it works. Now the reason that they've put it in there is it actually adds way more immersion to the game, in as much as it makes it more realistic because of the laws and regulations of having breaks and mandatory sleep or rest in different parts of the world, like the US here, because we're in the US with the ATS, but also USA, Australia. The laws are slightly different for the amount of time you can run before you have to have a break. So it does add that much more realism to it. Now, what I'll do is, before I do, don't forget to subscribe if you can. If you haven't already, it's free and really does help me out. Give me the thumbs up if you like the video, thumbs down if you don't, and also share it with a friend if you think they'll get any benefit out of this video. And I would really appreciate it if you did that immensely. All right, so let's take a look at where the settings are for this first. So we go to System and then go to Options, and we'll go to Gameplay. Now, it's in the same place as the mandatory breaks simulation or sleep or what do they call it? Fatigue. That's right. It was fatigue or something like that. So what you've got now is you've got rest state simulation and mandatory break simulation. Okay. And the brief descriptions that they give you, for example, the rest state simulation, they're saying when enabled, you will experience the effects of fatigue over time. You will need to rest to recover. Now that, to me, that sounded exactly the same as the fatigue simulations, no different. And then you've got the mandatory break simulation. When enabled, you must take regular breaks from driving. Avoiding mandatory breaks will result in traffic offences. Okay, so what's the difference between the two? Well, here where you might have to put your maths skills to work, and I'll try and make it as brief and broad as possible so you can get an idea. Okay, so rest state simulation, it basically emulates the rules about the hours you can drive, not the concurrent hours, but the hours that you're allowed to drive before you have to take a break, right? Or have a rest. Sorry, have a rest. So you can drive for, what are they saying here? Let me see if I get this right. I'm pretty sure it's, actually I've written it down somewhere. Let me have a quick look. All right, so in the US, you can drive for 8 hours before taking a 30-minute break, okay, or 30-minute rest. Okay, so by using this rest state simulation, you can actually rest for just 30 minutes or half an hour. Or I think the minimum is an hour. So you can act like you would in real life. So if you're driving for 8 hours, you've got to take a mandatory rest break for 30 minutes. So you can do that with this simulation. So if you turn that one off, okay, this is mandatory, and I'll explain what that is in a minute. This would then just become every so often you can stop and rest, and you can adjust the amount of time that you rest for. It's not the mandatory 10-hour break or whatever it is that you're supposed to do. It is just you can adjust it to whatever time you want. So again, like I say, for example, in the US, you can drive for 8 hours and then you have to have a 30-minute break, and then you can drive again for say up to 6 hours before you have to take a mandatory break. But I'll get into that later. In Australia, for example, I can, or we can in Australia, drive for 5 hours and then we're required to have a 15 to 20 minute rest. So you could do, I think you've got 14 hours in total that you can drive in 24 hours. So you could do a 5 hour stint, then stop for 20 minutes. And again, you can adjust your time and then do another 5 hours, stop for 20 minutes. And then you can do it for four hours before you have to have your mandatory break. Okay, so I don't know if you're getting the idea, but I'll explain it and show you it when I get into the game again. So that's the rest state, all right? So the rest state is just like you would in real life. You've got to take a break or a rest every so many hours, and then you can continue on for ever so how many hours it may be before you have to take a mandatory break. So therefore, your mandatory break, if we were to turn that off, and just have mandatory break on, it means you can drive for, example, in the US, you can drive for 14 hours in total before you have to take a 10-hour break. And it has to be a 10-hour break after that 14 hours, or else you'll get hit with a fine, if you get what I mean, after 14 hours. But if you have both of them on, okay, you'll be able to drive for, like I said, here in the US, which this game is, you could drive for up to 8 hours and then you have to take a 30-minute break. I hope that was all confusing because it was to me at first, but it really is self-explanatory if you get what I mean. So I've got both of them on to show you how this will work. Let's pop into the game. I'll probably have to fast forward time to show you how it works, but let's get in there and see how it is. Here we are right now at a rest stop. Now, if you have a look down the bottom in the right, you will see that you have a bed and you have a pee. No, you're not having a pee. You're not going to the loo, the toilet, right? It's a P, which means park, I'm guessing. The P stands for park, which means that's your mandatory break. So you have to take a mandatory break, as you can see down there in the bottom right, after 14 hours. Okay? The bed symbol is the rest, or the rest period, when you've got to take a rest period. So that shows you your fatigue state. It will decrease as you drive along. For example, I will now fast forward the time. Let's do this. What time is it right now? It is, I don't know what time it is. Where's the time? Oh, 8:14. Okay, so let's increase the time by, let's go to 12. Okay, and then we get out of there. And as you can see now, the time beside P has decreased to 10, meaning that we've used up 4 hours of our drive time. And the bed symbol, I don't know if you can see it very clearly there. Let me get it into a position where you can see it. Okay, there. It's actually decreased slightly. It's hard to tell with that. Let me fix that with the widgets. Put a background on it so you can see it. There we go. That's better. All right, so yeah, now you can see that the bed symbol has decreased by a certain period of time. Okay? So it's telling me that the mandatory stop, or the mandatory break, is 10 hours away. Okay? And if you're using this as if it was in real life, after 8 hours, you'd have to take a 30-minute break. Okay, so let's go after 8 hours. So now we want to increase it by 4 hours, so that then becomes 8 hours. So let's see. Have I got that right? Let's find out. Yeah. Did I? 8. Yes, that's correct. All right. So if you were going by the using the mandatory, sorry, not the mandatory, the rest stops that you have to take after 8 hours, now you would be required to take a rest stop. So what we shall do is this. We shall get the get the trigger to trigger. Hopefully I can get it to trigger. And it doesn't feel like it's going to for me. Just a bit of pain. I'm going to trigger. Okay, I'm going to drive around and come back and get it to trigger for me. It's always the way. It's called Murphy's Law. Oh, there we go. Okay, that triggered. All right, so now let me show you how this works. Stop. Press enter. And there we go. This is the new system. It's showing me that the mandatory break is in 14 hours? If I do 10 hours. Okay, so if I do this, okay, as you can see, I've got to take a half-hour break. I can't take a half-hour break because it only does it in 1 hour increments. So I go 1 hour, okay, and confirm that, and then away we go. And you can see now that once I add that 1 hour, it will mean that in 4 hours and 54 minutes, I must take the mandatory break. I hope you're following me. So we'll confirm that. And now we only go to sleep for 1 hour, and we're awake. And it means that if this was in real life situation, we've now done our rest break by law that we're required to do, and that we can continue on the job. And therefore, we're not breaking any real laws in real life, if you know what I mean. Again, I hope I'm explaining it correctly. So in real life, you can travel for 8 hours and you have to have a break or a rest for 30 minutes. We're going to say 1 hour. And so now we've done that. Now we can continue on with our job without actually increasing the time by 10 hours every time we take a rest, because that can stuff your job up, meaning that you'll end up late and therefore you'll lose money on the job. But by doing it this way, by having it so that you can take your rest and increase your time, you can then go on without having to do the 10 hours, just so that you can get there. So, for example, if we were, at the moment, we've got 5 hours here. If we were 6 hours away, I could stop here and take another, say, 2 hour rest break, and therefore increase my driving time after it. You get the idea. It's sort of hard to explain. But anyway, so you can see now that I have increased my fatigue level, decreased my fatigue level by looking at the bed, and I've increased my driving time as well. Hopefully you get the idea. So now if I was to continue on, and by the way, you can do it just so that it's one or the other. You don't have to have both on. If you just use and you want to just use the mandatory ones, like we've done in the past, where you have to stop for 10 hours to get your sleep back or your fatigue levels back up, you can do that. Or you can just do the rest one, where you can just stop every now and again for an hour. That way you're not wasting time with sleeping for 10 hours, and you won't be late on your job. I'm hoping I'm explaining that. I think it's great. I think it works really well. I can see situations where you might want to just use one or the other, and I can see situations where you want to use both for realism. And that's what I'm doing right now to show you how it works. Okay, so let's now increase the time again. That's giving me 2 hours. Okay, let's do it again. And that way we'll be able to see what happens when we run out of time. So you can see again that the fatigue has gone down, meaning that I'm getting tired. And as you can see, the mandatory break has gone down because, again, of the consecutive hours that I'm driving. So now, let me just fill up the head tracking so it's not moving around. So now, as you can see, once that 59 minutes runs down, actually let's do it again. Let's see how it works. We should start getting warnings now. Let's move forward, get out of here. Oh, and they're dragging back on. And now it's going to turn off. I want it to turn off so I can see. Okay. We'll drive along and see what happens. It should start giving me warnings soon, telling me that I'm tired. There we go. Exceed driving time, mandatory brake. You should find a parking spot. So it's telling me I have to find a parking spot. Now, I can do one of two things here to show you what happens. Let's do this. I'm going to end up hitting this sign. Yep, it's okay. It's just for demo. Alright, so we'll go back here. Now it's asking us to find a place to rest and have our mandatory break. Let's see what happens if I don't take the mandatory break. And what I do is this. Stop. Enter. Let's take a 1 hour. Let's take a 2 hour and see what happens. See, now it's telling me I won't, I'm not complied, meaning that I'll end up getting a fine because, and so I should, because I'm sleeping for 2 hours, but I should be taking my mandatory break. Let's see what happens. I'll probably get a fine. Okay, so let's drive away. Oops. Might help if I put it in the right gear. And start it. Okay. See, drone time, you should find a place to rest. That sign's back again. Okay, it may take a little while for it to happen, but we should get a mandatory fine. I'll drive up the road. But even though the fatigue, now as you can see, I've got plenty of time before I actually need to rest in as far as the rest break, not the mandatory one, but to the rest break, I've got plenty of time, but I haven't reached, I've overdone the mandatory one. So we should get a fine very shortly. It's probably going to make me a liar now. See the driving time without mandatory break. Find a, yeah, okay. Let's see what you can do. Give me a warning. Now it's, of course it does the dozing thing and everything. You do doze off. I've just, because I've been skipping ahead, it skipped over the dozing part. And not only that, because I've rested. Yeah, no, that's true. Because I've rested, as you can see, I'm not fatigued, but I've got to take my mandatory break. So I should get a fine soon, but I won't doze off. So it is working as you should, because I'm not fatigued, but legally I am required to take my mandatory break. Come on, don't make me a liar. Give me a fine. Oh, did I have fines turned on? Let's find out. No, on my luck, I haven't turned them on. Gameplay. No, I've got them on. Okay, good. keeps warning me. Come on, give me a fine. One time I really want a fine, it's not giving it to me. Oh, and there's a cop. There we go. So I got the fine, as you can see, but I'm still not fatigued. Do you get the idea? Because I took the rest breaks, I'm not fatigued enough to doze off and fall asleep behind the wheel. But I should be taking my mandatory break legally. Not because I'm tired, because I've already rested, but legally I'm not allowed to drive anymore. So in realistic terms, it makes it way more immersive. Again, it's still telling me. So I'm going to now fly back to where I was and get some sleep. Back here. And now to fix the problem, I have to take the mandatory break. And I'll show you how that works. I'll just put it back here. Okay. Stop. Enter. Right, now, as you can see, if I take the 10 hour, it means I have now complied. If I decrease that, see, it's saying I'm not complied. Right, so it means that I'll end up getting another fine if I don't comply. So we'll comply so that we don't. And you will see then, because I'm doing the 10 hours, it will advance me 10 hours. So you get the point. So you still have to take your mandatory if you've got both of them activated, just like you would in real life. But you can take rest, which will slightly increase it by that hour or whatever. But you'll still only be able to drive your 14 consecutive. So if you're having a break in between, you get the idea. I don't want to confuse you too much because it can sound confusing. But as you can see there now, I've got 14 hours again. My fatigue is back up because I've done the 10 hours, and away you go. I can, like I say, you can have one or the other. So let's go here, and we'll turn off the rest state simulation. And you'll see now that I just have the 14 hours. Okay, so that means I can drive for 14 hours. I don't have to stop until the end of the 14 hours, and then I've got to take a break for 10 hours. So let's go back to options, gameplay again. And now if I turn that off and I turn just that on, then we go back out, you'll see now that I've just got the fatigue one. So I can take a break every 8 hours, and that will build back up, if you know what I mean. So at the end of 8 hours, I can go for an hour break, then go, you know what I mean, before I start getting fatigue. If I get fatigue, that fatigue drops right down, you will doze off. So let's do that. Okay, now, right, you can hear I'm yawning already, so you can see it's working. So the fatigue now has run down. The wiper's working, and you'll see as we drive along that I'm coming. No, I'm not. You'll see that I'll start to doze off. Now, I know it's not going to make me lie. I know it's going to do it, but I just want to show you. You'll see that it'll start the vignette. It'll get darker around the edges as I drive a bit further. Here we go. You are tired. See how it's starting to get a little bit darker. There we go. It does stop. And now, yeah, I nearly ran off the road. Get the idea. So it does still include that if your fatigue drops. So to me, it just makes it so much more realistic by doing that. So again, fly back. And if I had, if I had just that on, if I had just the fatigue on, it means I could stop now. I won't have to stop for 10 hours. I can stop for whatever time I want. All right, so let's stop, enter. So now I could stop for, let's say, 2 hours, confirm. So that I don't have to stop for the full 10 hours, meaning that I can still get to the job on time, the drop off. And as you can see now, my fatigue is increased and I can continue driving. Hopefully that explains it for you. And again, I'll show you where those settings are, just so you can see. So gameplay, they're right at the top. You can't miss them. I'm going to leave both of them on in my single player. I think during our convoys, when we're doing hardcore, we'll probably have both of them on and see how they operate in test situation. But in my single player, I'm going to turn both of them on so that I can add way more realism to the game. So I reckon it's a great feature that they've added. A lot of people don't like it. And again, if you don't, just do that. Turn the mandatory brake simulation on and turn it off. You don't have to have it on. It's up to you. So no real reason to complain. I mean, you can turn both of them off and just go without worrying about fatigue. But like I say, if you're used to the old system and you don't want to play with the new one, you can turn it off. So hopefully that explained it as clear as mud for you. And yeah, if you did like this, like I said, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, give me a thumbs down. Tell me what I did wrong and I'll try and improve it in the next video. Also, if you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. Free, and it really helps me out with YouTube, and I would really appreciate it. Share this video if you can, and we'll catch up in the next one. Bye for now.